We're recording. Erica, I'm going to make you host and hop off. Have a great night, everyone.
Bye.
Bye, Athena. Thank
Wait,
you.
I suddenly can't hear anything.
Can you hear
Wait
me?
a minute. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I could hear you. Yeah.
What happened to my? I don't know why oh well.
Can
I
you
can't-
hear now?
Now I hear you.
Okay, good.
Things don't seem to work, but wait,
Yeah.
it did before. Oh, I hear
Are
you.
are you good?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Um, hello. Thanks.
Hello.
It feels like it's been a minute. Uh,
It's been a minute.
so lots to check in about, and as I did hear from Sam, and so I wanted to talk about that. Mostly I've wanted this session to be about figuring out everything we can do for our first event. And given that our first event is a week from tonight, um, it's hard because we can't exactly meet again between now and then, but maybe we can figure out things that we can do individually to get ready. First, if it's okay, I will, unless other people, we don't have anybody else present in terms of public comment. But unless anybody else has a major announcement, I can report out what I spoke to with Sam, what I spoke about with Sam this afternoon. Um, so two pieces of business. One is the town official survey, which I guess she needed to run by the town manager's office just to make sure everything was okay. And so now it appears to be. They asked me to clear up one line in the section. If you remember, there's a little section, a sort of disclaimer about anonymity, that we're asking for names. We're not going to attach names to any of the feedback, but because we can't exclude the possibility that it becomes part of a public record because it's town business. We can't guarantee anonymity. Like if somebody requests it, like a public records request, it goes with names attached. But so they wanted me to add a line to that effect, that we're not planning to use any names and attributions in our reporting, but that we can't, it is part of a public record. So
Yep.
I'll add that line and then the survey is out the door. I did send all of that material
Thank
to
you.
last week. So I think there's just been a bunch of things happening in her office that that have
Held her up.
held her up in being able to launch all the publicity that we had hoped. But okay, so that's one piece of business. The other piece of business is obviously our listening session and the publicity that needs to happen there. And the good news is they have a new intern that has just started this week. So there's somebody who can make copies of flyers and post them around town. There's without doing like a deep dive, there was a technical problem with the link. I provided her a link that it's not really a technical problem, but it was loading an ad which it never had before, and so we preferred to make it not load an ad before taking people to the website.
Good.
She found a workaround, and so I just need to adjust the flyer to slightly to show that particular URL. It's a little bit different. And she is going to send me the press release she had hoped to send me a few days ago, but she's sending me the press release in the morning. And that will go out as soon as I have a look at it. It will go out to the newspapers and the blogs and will be posted around and will be linked on all of the town social media platforms. And at that point, I feel comfortable sort of sending the same packet of materials to everyone in our committee so that we can all be pushing in the same direction and everybody can send to their own whatever lists or groups or, emails of local people, social media, whatever you want to do with it, on our own terms, then we're all using the same materials.
Right, great.
So that's what I can report. And I said, we're a little concerned because it's a week from tonight. And do we think we still have time to, enough lead time to publicize? She seemed to think so, that the Gazette and the Indy, have a pretty quick turnaround. We can, of course, supplement that as individuals. If somebody wants to post something to the Indy, for instance, as an individual, it doesn't have to just be the official press release.
Right.
So we can, give it 24 hours from tomorrow morning and then sort of see where we're at in terms of boosting up the announcement of this thing. She did
Mhm.
ask me, Meg, I wanted to ask you, she did ask me, is there a specific room at the Bangs?
Yeah, the large activity room.
Okay, just making sure. That's what we both thought, but
Right.
just making sure.
Yeah. And they're going to set up the tables and we have to bring everything other than tables and chairs, like microphone and anything materials, obviously. But
Okay.
should we discuss a drop dead date if the word hasn't gotten out by some point that we don't do that first one? I can't be at the first one.
I know.
So I don't want to weigh in like, oh, let's not have it because I can't be there, but that's not what I meant. But you
Yeah.
two should decide whether there's a point when we would say like Monday, if there's no announcement yet,
Well,
or do we just do
open.
it?
Raphael, what do you think?
I feel we should just do it and see who shows up in terms of just getting this started.
Yeah,
And can you both come?
I can.
yes.
Okay, I cannot because there's something it would involve a long amount of driving and I'm just going to say I can't make that one, so that's okay.
Yeah, I think it's
Good.
fine. And I think given that it promises to be smaller scale than other, other ones, that I think between the two of us, Raphael,
Yeah.
I'm speaking for you, but I think between the two of us, we can handle the facilitation of the first one and sort of treat it like a rehearsal almost, that
Yeah,
we'll learn a lot from how it goes and what we want to have for the next ones, or
Right.
how we want to think about the next ones.
right. Good.
I mean, I suppose if the week ends and there's nothing has been released, then we have something to think about. But I right now feel like if
Good.
we're all aligned, and I've really spoke to Sam about, she's doing her part, and if we as a committee, not just us three, but the whole committee can do our part.
Yeah.
To just send the word out a little bit.
Yeah. So the Indy deadline is Friday afternoon
Mhm.
and it comes out Saturday morning at 6 a.m. So that would be in my mind, a kind of cut off, but it's up to
Yeah.
you two, because if it's in the Indy, at least several hundred people will see it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like it's been mentioned a number of times, so I think we go with
This
the
state has? Good.
just listening sessions. I think I've seen it online. Some people have noted it. Indeed.
Oh, good,
It's on the town website now.
good.
So,
Just need
to
to
the
get it.
extent that somebody finds it there, well, okay.
Good.
So publicity is
plan.
underway. I made a note, I put agenda item 6 about hosting an info session, Raphael, the issue that you raised. And I thought before, which I'm really interested in talking about, before we get to that, I just thought we should talk a little bit about the optimal facilitation for this meeting, like how we want it to go, and what materials we might want to bring with us. So we have enough lead time to get ready. We had talked about, for instance, bringing the copies of this, the summary of the articles that Andy had prepared way back, and that's easy enough to just sort of make some copies. I'm sure I could get Sam to help with that. Copies of the charter itself seemed like a little bit of a heavier lift, because it's a bigger packet.
They have copies of it at the town hall, I think. We would only
So-
need like 10. I don't think very many
If-
people would want it.
I will ask for a few. I don't think what I'm saying is I don't think we are launching a new copy job for that. But
No.
ask them to bring a few for sure. we had talked about. So in terms of other sort of documents, those kinds of materials, is there anything else that we want to generate or bring?
I would say for the introduction, I'm not sure you want to bring it, but I think it's important for us to share like what this committee's charge is and just reiterate that. I don't know if it's worthwhile to name the members of this committee, but it's good to just frame what our charge is and let people know where we are in this process. There is a document that guides our charge, but I'm not sure it's necessary. But I think it's important to have that projected or shared at some point.
Yeah,
And who
Agreed.
would write that? I mean, the charge
I mean,
is,
Well, there's a document that spells out the charge already.
yeah.
It's on the
I'm just
website.
saying, who's gonna, you said project it. Would we
Yeah,
hand it out as paper?
we just project the bulleted points. And we could perhaps adapt it, but I think if it's large enough, we just review them quickly
Okay,
Yeah.
but when you say project, you mean on a screen?
on a screen. And
Okay,
if that's not plausible, it could just be copied to be shared or written, large poster paper or whatever shared with.
sure, sounds good.
I mean,
Somebody
we
has to,
charge members,
screen.
and I think, maybe we do a 1 page that has that
Yeah,
committee charge, the named members, and a sort of
Mm.
the list of dates for these listening sessions and a
Yeah.
link that it's a takeaway. So anybody who wants to take that with them.
good.
so charge the list of
The
members.
The dates for listening sessions and the website.
Okay.
The new
Uh,
website,
Yeah, which I will send.
great,
I could work on that.
That's great, Raphael.
really great.
I'll send you the new website link that that Sam has created that links to the website that I put up on our behalf.
All right.
Anything else that we need to bring?
Well, do we need a microphone? And
I have a microphone that we could use. I could check back in with Amherst Media, but I think I have 2 microphones that I could get from them.
wow, great. And a speaker or something, but
Yeah,
Great.
it's connected to a speaker.
fantastic.
Okay, that would be great. Do you think that is it something you need to check on, like, and let us know, or?
Yeah, I'm gonna be back in my office on Friday. I don't think anybody's using. I
Okay.
could circle back around and let you all know, but I'm pretty sure it'll be available.
Great,
I'll let you
Great.
know on Friday though.
perfect, thank you.
Terrific.
And so we had gone back and forth on the notions about note-taking if we're doing any recording, we get into a situation where we kind of have to like let people know, and I'm open to that, but we do have to prepare for that, like with some signage or something to let people know that they're walking into a meeting that's being recorded, even if it's just audio.
Right.
So, and then the alternative is handwritten notes, which is not that comfortable either. So, where are we landing on that question? At least for a first run. We could change our minds for
Yeah.
2, 3, and 4, but
Well, I like putting things up on it's handwritten, and then people, one thing, you've probably done this as well, go up and put dots on the ones that they like. So at least they're sort of weighing in on the issues they care about. That's a crude method because it's just big ideas rather than subtle ideas, but
you mean like something on an easel and you're writing?
yeah. So somebody in the small groups, if we have those, takes notes and then reports back, and then someone writes on a big easel. Well, that's just one. I'm not stuck to that, and I won't be there, but writes up the main points, and then people discuss them and fine tune them, and then after, as they're leaving or near the end, that people can go up and put dots on the ones that they like. But that's just one way of doing it, to see, because the thing is not just to get ideas, but to see which ideas have a lot of support. Because some people could raise really harebrained things and they get up there, if they have equal weight with things that everybody in the room agrees with, it's not as accurate reporting. So it's not just what are the people's ideas, but which ones do people in the room like?
Yeah.
Someone could come up with, there'll be some really harebrained things maybe that'll come out.
My feeling is probably even more than, harebrained things is that people will
Maybe not
not
harebrained, but
necessarily
whatever that means.
will not necessarily distinguish between things that are kind of like under the purview of the charter review versus like, I wish this or that law or bylaw
Right.
in town was different,
Right.
or wish town did a better job of,
Right.
fixing the potholes or whatever.
Right.
And which is not harebrained, it's an actual problem, but
No.
it's not something that the Charter Review Committee can necessarily speak to without steering the pothole problem into
Yeah.
a conversation about either budget or
Right.
jurisdiction or whatever. But
Yeah.
anyway,
Right. I agree.
that's
At
my
the same
concern.
time, though, there may be things they bring up that are not about potholes, but are about town government, but not in the charter, like committees, or the things that are the way they do things. It's administrative decisions that they've made that some people may not like, that aren't charter decisions, but they're how the town has decided to, for example, use Zoom or different kinds of, or meetings and so on.
Mhm.
But anyway, I think it's good to find out not just what people's opinions are about the charter, but how many people share those ideas. Where's the weight?
Yeah. Um,
I have a lot of those dots if you want me to bring them over to one of you. I've done this so many times, the dot things.
yeah, I think I might have some too. I have to look through the
Yeah.
office supplies here, but
But I don't care if we don't do that. I'm just saying that's a way of
no, I
giving.
don't think it's a bad idea. I think the original question was about recording, like
Yeah.
how extensively do we want to record what we hear? And that is a good method for like a group discussion and for seeing what emerges
Uh-huh.
with more or less weight behind it on a
Mhm.
group basis is certainly not a bad idea. Do we think that that's enough to capture what we hear?
I don't know. What do you think,
Raphael, do you have
Raphael?
thoughts on like the question of, recording / transcription versus note taking versus something more active, like that we can then take away, right? And generate our own report out from an easel pad, let's say.
Yeah, I would say with a limited amount of time, maybe easel pad sharing is best.
Mhm.
And maybe like just some attributing like who in that small group is in agreement, just to get some sense of
Mhm.
where there's agreement. I think in terms of like the question about what's possible and not, or not, I think from where I sit in terms of like us facilitating, I don't think we intrude too much. I think we let the reviewers of this, the information that we gather sort of figure that out on the
Mhm.
latter end. But I
Yeah.
think just let folks share. Like, what
Mhm.
would you change? What are your thoughts? And record
Mhm.
that on the easel pad to take away for the committee that's reviewing just feedback.
Mhm.
Right.
Because
Okay.
beyond the here's what I would like to change, it's perhaps just good for community members to engage and talk about how to chart.
Yeah.
And I don't think we need to like necessarily collect all that at this point. I think it's soon. I think figuring out the transcription piece is tricky. I'd rather
Mhm.
just go with short easel ideas shared.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm good
too.
with that too.
Yeah.
Especially
Meg,
this first time.
Yeah.
Meg, do you have a way to reach out to Bangs and see if they have anything like that on site? And if not, I'm happy to just get one.
Get a what? An easel?
The pad that we
Oh,
would,
I have a pad.
the
I don't
big
know who
easel
has an
pad
eas-
that we can take notes on during.
She was very clear they don't have anything at all other than the
Okay.
tables and
I
chairs.
wasn't sure
But
because it's such a frequently used room.
I
that maybe
know,
that stuff
it's a
sitting
shame.
around.
She was,
I could get that.
wait, an easel or the pad?
We could stick it against the walls. I think I have a lot of those.
Okay,
Okay, you're gonna do so I just want to be clear, I'm not providing the flip chart thing, the pad.
I have that.
Okay,
Yeah.
I
have a
don't
lot.
have an easel, but I know where I could get one from co-housing, but we
I-
can
I-
just stick it on the wall.
Yeah, we could just stick it on the wall.
So we
Yeah.
need masking tape.
No, you could stick it.
Oh, it comes with a sticky
Yeah.
back. Good. Better.
But
I've
I
got to
could
get
get
that kind. I've got to get some of those. Now that Hastings is gone, what a bummer. We have to go all the way down to Staples for everything.
Yeah, I could get all that. That's
Once a
not
week, I miss Hastings, at least. Anyway.
so
Okay, good.
I'll have that for the session too.
And
Thank
do you
you.
have the dots or do you want me to donate dots?
Oh, we're fine. I think
Okay,
some stuff we could record.
good.
Yeah. We could have it.
People don't like the markers that smell chemical. I'm just
Okay.
telling you, if people say, I can't.
Okay. I hear that. Yeah.
okay. So, and any other sort of practicalities? They have chairs and tables. We're bringing mics and paper and pens, and copies of
The stuff.
documents that we want to share with people. Are there any other practicalities that we need to pull together? Because then we need to have a discussion about like how we frame or guide the conversation. But like, are there any other practical matters like that I'm not thinking of? We're set for 7, but I think you said that we can go in at 6:30.
6 to 9:30.
Okay.
So, and nobody in the charter review committee has responded about being available to come. So I'll send out, after we finish this, I'll send out a reminder that we need at least a couple of people.
I can do that because what I'm going to
Oh,
do
good.
after we meet is finish the flyer and then send it back to Sam and also send it to all of our group.
Great.
And
So just say
I'll
we,
include a reminder, please come.
good, perfect. Thank you.
Is it for any of these plausible for the intern that you talked about being hired to be involved or no?
Oh, that's a good question. I hadn't occurred to me. In what sense? Because I can ask Sam specifically.
I think in terms of just getting word out there in different ways, I would love to talk about perhaps like one, capturing parts of this event or capturing folks who attend. So in terms of like adding some additional ways to share how this process is going, like having a process where perhaps someone at that meeting might be interested in sharing like what I want to change about town government, capturing that via video and using that as part of like what we do moving forward to get other people involved. Does that make sense? So we captured 3 individuals, record what they say, videotape what they say, and add it to a plan to sort of enhance how we're sharing or doing more to share the work.
Great.
I'm just
Am
making
I
a
clear in
note.
how I'm sharing that or no?
Yeah, you mean on site, like
Yeah,
more or less spontaneously,
yeah.
voluntarily.
So-
If anybody wants to.
Yeah,
share
we
that.
let them know the why. We're
Yeah.
trying to get word out.
So who's gonna, go
Yeah,
ahead,
that's why I
sorry.
asked about the intern.
But who's gonna do that video?
Well, it could be, I think we should think about in this committee later on, like how do we capture maybe this process
Okay,
better? But it could be just a quick video of a few folks sharing, like I attended. I could work on that a little bit in terms of just letting
great,
people know when it took place. But here's what people are saying about the charter. We want just come up with something where we have more things to share.
great.
Okay, I made a note. I'm gonna ask Sam if if the communications office intern could be available, would want to be available to help support the kind of recording process of this first session.
Mhm.
And then we decide what to do with that material later.
Yeah, and even if it's
Yeah.
just a short part of it, it's
Mhm.
just like
Yeah.
letting the community know, here's what's in play.
Yeah, no, I like
Good.
this idea.
Me
You
too.
know, I've mentioned before, but video production was my entire
Okay.
former life.
Uh-huh.
I would rather not be filming that night because I want to be
I hear
involved in
that.
facilitating, but it gives me ideas about what we could do with that material later. And also that we would need to be ready because if we're going to have an intern record a quick message from this or that person,
Yeah,
we want to just have them release.
yeah,
So I will put that inquiry out to Sam tomorrow.
right. And even if the intern can't do it,
Yeah,
I actually think it's worthwhile for you and I to think about how maybe you and I could capture like a part of it, small part, or have a few folks who might be interested, like share maybe what the experience was like, or maybe what their thoughts are about change it, just short, minute or two, just to have
Great.
something to use for later.
yeah, good.
Yeah, good.
Thank you. That's a good idea.
Maybe do you two know who's going to open and say what between the two of you?
No, I was hoping we'd get to that, but
Sorry,
so
I'm jumping ahead.
that's okay. This is good because it's on the level of like
Yeah.
just practical things to set up.
Right.
So I'll see about that and see what who's available and when. Uh, okay. Do we want to talk about how we want the night to go?
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
That
Um,
that's what I was kind of getting at, like who
yeah, I just want to
starts
make
and-
sure we
Yeah.
addressed all the stuff.
Good.
that we
Technical
have.
stuff, right.
Okay, so what I see is the idea of having the committee charge dates website printed out is that's a nice way to start. Is like we quickly summarize who we are as an entity and what it is we're doing and how we've framed the necessity and usefulness of having public listening sessions as part of this process, because it's really integrated into the charge is the public feedback portion.
Right.
And so I like the idea of emphasizing that right from the start. I am of two minds about like how much to structure the conversation because I don't really feel inclined to go through article by article or anything like that, or even
No.
a very rigid set of topics framed out that we want to make sure we hit. But I think some loose structure could be
Mhm.
useful. Some broad themes. But I think this is just my feeling that I think that starting with a very open field is probably best,
Mhm.
except that people are shy and I want to give just enough prompts to make people feel welcome to speak and to understand that I don't know, the real frame of what it is we hope to hear
Mhm.
from them. So there's good questions to ask without being too leading, I guess.
Right.
Yeah. I'm in agreement. I think I wouldn't want to lead folks in a particular direction. It would be great for them to have some space to just share without being prompted. Like, what are your thoughts about the charter in general and parts that you want to see adapted or changed. I would say like we could possibly think about like weaving in, if we have time, like what folks have been saying thus far. I don't know if it's worthwhile to include like what the other committee has done with terms of themes that are emerging in the introduction. So it's not us, but it's here's what community members are saying thus far. And having that as a part of the introduction, maybe it's leading, but it lets people be aware of here's what people in town are saying thus far.
Yeah, I strongly support that, Raphael. I think that we've heard a lot, and we've been going since last October. That to act as if we're starting it from scratch, we now want to hear, you know, your new, I don't know, I just think without leading or getting too specific, but if there was a way to say, these are the big things that people are commenting on without, again, without too much specificity, that it would advance our process more than if we're just starting from scratch.
And I would say for me, like in addition to that, it's like really trying to be cognizant of this is not our process. Like we're not the ones who are recommending things. And I think
Right.
there have been like things in the past that seem to run counter to that. So I'm trying to be really cognizant of let's make sure the public is aware that we are really leaning into the response to this process, hence sharing what's been shared thus far. And even in this facilitation, it's being guided by what folks, the charter process, what's in the charter and what folks in the community are saying. Not
Yep.
this.
Right, exactly.
Yep. I think just a question about that. In the part about sharing what's been shared as a
Right.
prompt to further conversation. And what's the best way to do that?
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
there's we could share real specific sort of active and thorough suggestions people are making, or all the way to like a broad exploration of like, we're getting a lot of feedback on these areas, right? Like they're getting not so much feedback, like nobody's writing to us about this, but tons of people are
Yeah.
writing to us about the size of the town council, just as an example.
Right.
Because
For me, it's the latter.
you think broad areas.
Yeah. And I think in our last meeting, that committee talked about how they might share. I'm not sure they're there yet, but if I recall correctly, they are looking at themes that are emerging.
Yeah.
And that being shared, I think, is what I was thinking about, not this.
Right.
I agree.
So has that group generated something that we could use? I know they've uploaded a lot of documents for our meeting packets, but is there one that we could point to that's like, this is something we could use as a reference guide for ourselves in the facilitation of this meeting?
I'll have to search that, but I think they have shared a number of things. It'll be useful to think about how we share that in this format.
Yeah.
So I could look again and see what's there.
Yeah.
I don't want to press them to create something new, but
no,
just adapt or use what's been created thus far.
Yeah. Okay.
So I could take a look.
Yeah, I'll take a look as well. That's great. The other piece that I was thinking of is in the same vein. I have found it useful from time to time. It's come up in our own conversations and in the conversations with Collins to distinguish between what kinds of things can be changed by what means. And that's a recurring topic for our committee that's been in discussion. Like, does this take a special act? Does this have to be changed at the state level? Is this something that the that Amherst itself could
Yeah.
change. I don't feel fully educated on that. We're still in that process, but just the idea of identifying that those
Categories,
those limitations or categories
right?
exist, um, could be useful for the conversation as part of the frame of what the committee's doing.
Yeah.
Of
It
what
seems
the-
so that when we're asking them for what they think should change, that we don't want to edit it. It would feel like editing, say, oh, that has to go to the legislature. Oh, that, I think we
Right,
can
that's the
just,
last thing I want to do is shut
Yeah,
people
right.
down. Yeah,
say, oh, no, that, but just to say, the committee will interpret the feedback it hears and put them in these categories of change. Some have to go to the state legislature. Some require a whole new charter, which is so not likely to happen. And some can just be done locally. But we're not asking them to put their comments in those categories because we
No,
don't
not
even
at all.
understand them all ourselves. Yeah, good.
not at all. Yeah.
So to me, what Meg shares makes sense to me in terms of like I would like to steer clear of that.
Yeah.
We have some folks who are helping us in terms of development of understanding. So share, take back, and then that sort of figuring out happens later. It's good to name that. We are not experts.
Mhm.
And that's where like the beginning of this process in terms of what our charge is, that piece about we are developing an understanding of the charter as well. So
Right.
therefore, just naming that. But I'd rather not be in the business of doing that sort of interpretive work with them.
Mhm.
Yeah. I don't think that's the right place to do it. It's just
Yeah.
and as a sort of framing
Yeah.
For where we're heading. Okay. Other ways or notions of framing or other kinds of prompts that we want to sort of have in our minds as we kind of if this conversation goes cold, sometimes happens when you're doing a group
Right.
discussion. I think we have the thematic sort of breakdown of what's been shared so far. That's a thing that we point to or can reference. That's right on hand. So that's great. Is there any other sort of, I don't know, is there anything that we want to make sure we talk about?
So one of the questions is who's of you two is going to say what? And how much of this is going to be the large group and will there be enough people to break down into tables? It seems that would affect how we respond to what you just asked, Erica.
Yeah.
I suggest being prepared with some of the things, for example, that we've heard, like some of the things the league mentioned that we know are controversial, and not say it's the league, but to say
Community, yeah.
people have suggested this. If nobody responds, and then have these 7 or 8 topics that the council is too big.
Yeah.
Because if people just sit there silent, you don't want to talk for an hour and a half. I also suggest that there be some cutoff number that if we don't have a certain number, like say 20, that we don't break into small groups, or that I mean, if there are only 12 people who come, it seems like you have to be flexible about how it's structured based on
Yeah.
how many people show up.
That's how I feel, Meg.
Yeah.
And I feel pretty comfortable not over scripting this thing.
Yeah.
And that it seems to me like from all our previous discussions and what we're talking about tonight, Raphael, I feel comfortable improvising with you that we can be responsive, and I think we're basically on the same page about the purpose of this conversation and the ways in which we don't want to predetermine
Yeah.
it or overdetermine the outcome of it. So
Yeah.
I think
I was really sorry.
no, it's okay.
ahead.
I just what I'm saying is if we suddenly get an amazing turnout and we want to improvise a small group or break it into 2 and have a smaller group discussion, I feel like we could probably figure that out in real
Yeah.
time, as opposed to kind of planning for that and then being in a very small group and making.
Yeah, I agree.
I think we decide that live.
Here's what
I
I would think, though. If
totally
we
agree, but
begin with
have
if we begin with the themes that are emerging from feedback, I think in preparation for the facilitation, it would be great to mine that information that's been prepared for us, just to use that as questions for smaller group facilitating. If folks are quieter,
Yeah.
not
Right.
to use out the gate, but to have us back up.
Yeah.
And the thing, if that committee, that other subcommittees on content hasn't produced what we're hoping, you could ask them, what are 6 or 7 things that have come out that are controversial? And I know
Yeah.
that when after the league presentation, I was so frustrated because Bernie said, well, there's a whole lot there I didn't agree with. And I was like, what? I want to know. I mean, I might even just call him up and say, well, I'm just curious, what didn't he agree with? And not that I want to have an argument, but just I haven't heard any controversy yet.
Yeah, but I think they've produced stuff that we could use, and we could also use the stuff that the League of Women Voters has shared.
Yeah,
That's
to
just
pull out the things that are the big suggestions.
so folks are quieter. Again, I feel like we lean into here's what the public has shared thus far.
Yep,
Thought.
totally. And that'll take us ahead because that'll advance our process. So it's not like we're just beginning this to hear what people.
Yeah.
I mean, there were sheets worth of comments.
Yeah, and I think it's important for the public to know that,
Yeah,
just of our progress in this process. Does that work for you, Erica?
It does. It does. I'll review that. I'll review what's been generated and kind of maybe make my own cheat sheet to have things right on hand to prompt
Good.
conversation if it goes dry.
great.
This can be a lot of time though, Erica, if you don't have folks who are chatty, but certainly that's easy to have in some spaces. But how much time do you think we'll need for the introduction?
I'm imagining 15 minutes, right? Like there's not a ton to say and we don't want to over talk. That's what I was thinking as a kind of initial introduction to what is the charter review, who kind of mandated this and when, and who are we and who are our colleagues, and what are some other ways to get in touch with us or to participate, and then what would we like from tonight? To me, that's
Right.
15.
Perfect. At the most. Yeah, good. Excellent.
And did we talk about why listening sessions? Do we have something to share about why this format? Do you want to share that or no?
In fact, I was thinking when I was generating the flyer or the website that the letter that Meg, that you had drafted and worked on initially to sort of announce the charter committee process more publicly, that some of that language could be useful as we sort of describe what it is we're doing and the importance of public opinion. I mean, to my mind, every time I reread that charge, it's the collection of public feedback and public opinion is all threaded through there.
Yeah.
And I would just love to, emphasize. I mean, it's inherent in the frame of what we're doing. It's not like our personal take on it. It's right there.
Right.
Okay.
So, yeah, absolutely. I think somewhere in there, you want to also tell people there are lots of ways to have input. One is to come to a list, and you can do several, but there are these two websites for, giving comments anytime they feel like it, like the middle of the night. Or they can call people up, or they can, that these listening sessions are marking some public occasions, but our ears are, we're listening all the time. There's a committee. You don't want to overstate it, but I think people need to know tell us what you think, however that works. Spread the word. We want to hear.
Yes. Yeah,
Because I
Yeah.
think the criticism, and I don't really think it's totally our fault, but it's like, geez, you guys have been going since what, October, and what are you doing? And they don't, if they haven't followed the process, they don't realize that we haven't had a budget, that we haven't had consultants, that we haven't, there are things that have happened, but there's a little bit of a feeling of, what took you so long, I think. So just the more you can share, there are lots of ways of participating. Well, not lots, but several,
mhm,
the better.
Right.
yeah,
All right. Sounds like a plan.
okay, good. I guess if
Good.
the rest of
Sounds like-
it, whatever you find out, Raphael, about microphones and paper and all that stuff, you'll let us know.
Yeah.
By email. We certainly don't need another meeting for any of
No.
that. I think we have a plan for to
Yep.
facilitate the content. I'll work on making sure we have copies of things. If Raphael, once you have the one pager that we talked about with the charge and the dates for future sessions and all that business, I'll you can send it to me or to Sam. We'll get copies made for that.
How many copies do you think we want to make?
Why don't we make 50 copies and then
Have some left over.
have some left over. I don't suspect we're getting 50 people,
No.
but I do think or that everybody will take one home, so can use them for future sessions.
Yeah, good.
Yeah, I think in regards to that one pager, we could take that off their plate. I could copy those. It's not a big deal.
Okay,
Great. Thank you.
thank you. In that
I really
ca-
appreciate you two doing this, and sorry I can't be there, but I'll be at the other ones.
Oh, we'll enlist you for the next one.
Okay. Yeah, I'll be there. Never mind, it's a family thing,
Yeah,
out of town,
yeah,
granddaughter
I understand.
moving up to Heights anyway.
For me, the hope is we can think of other ways of like getting beyond Sam's office. Like, how else can we get word out there? We'll see who attends.
Yeah,
There'll be,
well, the Indy and the Current, they'll do, the Amherst Current, they have a big list of Amherst Forward people. There are these two political action committees in town and two groups and two media, and it's ridiculous in my opinion, but they're both
to
have
me, it's the
readers.
perhaps
Yeah,
who are often civically engaged, but I think like thinking about how do we expand on who's in the mix
yeah,
is part of what we should think about here.
totally. Yep,
I think one thought I had about that is, and we had sort of talked about this, but very loosely early on, is having a sort of presence somewhere, like take little versions of the flyer to the farmers market, or
Yeah.
some other public events or venues, and just, put it in somebody's hand that there's a way
Yeah.
to engage.
yep,
It doesn't mean that you get 100% turnout. It means you start spreading the word and making
yeah,
it aware. So we could
what-
come up with a short list of things like that.
yeah,
Yeah.
Now that we have some materials and some things to point to and some dates to point to, it's a little easier to conceive of like where we could distribute
Yeah.
things.
But the farmers market, for example, is a really good idea. And you can get these banners made, you can get them on like a fabric or on paper, and you just get a little card table and put it across Amherst Charter Review, and we could take turns sitting there. People go to the farmers market, that's just one example, and walk around. And, you never know, we might get just the visibility, I think is a really good
Yeah.
idea.
Yeah.
Visibility.
And for me, like the challenge in this type of work is like younger audience involvement, and it
Mhm.
would be worthwhile to think about that, not maybe tonight, but later on.
Yeah,
What might be in play to get a wider sort of, when it comes to demographics,
Mhm.
just younger folks in the mix, hear from them.
Yep.
Yeah. I think that we've been very focused on getting these listening sessions up and locked down and just some
Yeah, really.
publicity. It's been a big effort. But I think that all along we have floated some other ideas that have gotten, you know, a little bit lost because this took such an effort. But
Mhm.
I like the idea of bringing those back.
Mhm.
We as a subcommittee aren't going to meet again for 2 weeks, which means, or actually, I don't know. I've lost it because next week is our session. The week after
And-
that is a committee meeting. And
No,
so
a committee meeting is next week too. So
No.
Wednesday's the listening session. Don't we
it
have a
isn't
committee?
because there's no committee meeting next week because of Juneteenth. And so the committee meeting
Oh.
the following Thursday.
And then are they every 2 weeks after that, or I'll find out.
I
Oh,
believe
man,
so.
I just.
Anyway, what I'm trying to say is that this subcommittee and all of our potential ideas for things like farmers market or others, you know, engaging some younger listeners, you know, we might have a 3-week gap now before we get to generate
Yikes.
ideas. And so I don't know what the remedy is for that, but I'm open to figuring out some other ways. There's no reason why when we're finally in our season of, you know, public engagement, why we shouldn't figure out another way to
Yeah.
going.
I hear them.
I mean,
I can't remember go ahead, sorry.
farmers market tabling is something I can find out about, but I don't want it to slow us down.
No,
If it
But
means
we're-
that I just
yeah.
go out with like a stack of some flyers and walk around, I would just prefer to do that than wait for a formal table that we engage the which means enlisting many committee members to come and rotate through and sit and talk with,
yeah,
which is it's a wonderful approach, but it takes more logistics and planning.
it's just if you have a big sign, people, as opposed to what having.
It's to me, it's
as
not one or
opposed to
the other, is what I'm
Yeah,
saying.
right, both.
Yeah.
Yep. I can't remember, where did the budget thing end up last week?
Yeah, sure.
I'll look at the note. Oh, I'm taking the notes. I have to look at the video. I forgot. Last week I was somewhere else anyway. Okay. I'll look at it and find out and do the minutes. And I owe 2 minutes of this subcommittee.
Yeah, I am very behind on that.
How do we want to close out the listening session? How do we want to end it?
Do you have thoughts?
Yeah, I think just reiterating the charge of the committee, thanking folks, and also thinking about that element in terms of folks that might want to share, via that video collection piece.
Yeah. Yeah, and again, reiterating future dates, other opportunities, all of that.
Right.
Yeah.
Good.
Okay, I think we have a basic frame. We
Yep. You
have
two are
some
doing all the
things-
work. Thank you.
We have some things to follow up on, and we'll have to do the rest by email or whatever.
Without deliberating.
Without deliberating, just reporting out.
I deliberated today a little bit, and then as soon as I send, I was, oh no, I said we should think about whether we're gonna have enough people. Okay, so I won't do that again, but nobody sees it because I didn't include Athena.
Oh man, it's hard to do, but
It is hard.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I'm just moving to the other agenda item, which was the concept of hosting an info session. And Raphael, this is something that you raised at the end of the committee meeting. And if I understood you correctly, it's something that I was sort of thinking about at the same time, but I was in a brief meeting with Collins and Julian and Andy earlier this week as a sort of post review conversation about planning for how how to go forward with it.
Mhm.
And so I would just love to hear you say more about what you were thinking about the value of an info session or how you were thinking about that.
For me, it's much about letting the public know, one, that these sessions are available for them to just getting that out there in different ways.
Mhm.
And also, yes, we are developing our understanding of the charter with the Collins Center, but it's tricky to have sessions where we're weighing in all the time. So in terms of looking at this process, it's
Yeah.
like this committee has sort of the inside track to sort of sharing the ideas about how this charter should be adapted. We should allow the public to know, or reiterate, stress, let the public know that they're also in the mix. So if you want to attend these sessions, you can. These sessions are online if you want to understand the charter via this the Collins Center sort of review. So to me, it's more about just public engagement and letting them know like these sessions are taking place. The Collins Center
Right.
reviewing the charter. Show up if you can, but the recordings are there. I think
Right.
it's tricky when you have these sessions where it's us weighing in all the
Hmm.
time.
Yeah.
So it just gives me pause.
It gives you pause that,
So we have this session where they're going through the charter with us,
yeah,
help us develop our understanding of the charter. Why is it necessary for us to share in that setting our perspectives about what needs to be changed?
I see what you're
Right.
We
saying.
go through the
I
process
agree with
that
you.
other community members. If I feel like I'm a committee member and I feel like I want X to change, fill out the survey.
Absolutely. Totally
Because
agree with you, Rafi. Good, totally important point you're making.
and I have the sense I'm not the only one.
No, I don't think
Yeah.
it's been said at the meetings,
Yeah.
although it's leaking out. But yeah, because I had said at one point very early on, should we share where we're coming from just so we know who's at the table? And people said, no, it's not about what we think. It's about what we're hearing from the community.
Mm.
But then it leaks out, like when Bernie said there were things in the league thing he didn't agree with. I thought, oh, I wonder what. But I agree with you. This isn't these, especially these public listening sessions. They're not about us.
Mm.
So I totally agree. But I'm wondering, like, as an outreach subcommittee, what I heard you saying was it, in some ways, the service that we are being provided as a committee, the Charter Review Committee by Collins, as a sort of a deep dive, informative session about what our charter contains and how it compares and how the kind of like how it relates to the way other towns do it or whatever, that is a almost like could be as informative to the public as it is to us.
And
Yeah.
and what I was saying is, yes, people know that this is happening if they go to the website, maybe. But I think we need to reiterate Collins Center reviewing charter with, I don't know how we share it, but I think we need to dig in on like sharing with the public, like this is happening, attend if you'd like. It's just signals something different. Even if people don't attend, it shows like we're cognizant of this service is being provided and we're pressing the public to either like engage with this service and they show up. There were people last week who showed up and they got what we got.
Yeah.
And I think beyond like just having it in our materials, like can we publicize it somewhere else? Like
Well,
here's what's happening.
we can certainly, since we have this mechanism, which is a website that is not the
Yeah.
town, but it's our own thing,
Yeah.
we can certainly provide direct links, right?
Yeah.
And say, this is the meeting where
Yeah.
Articles 1 and 2 were discussed in depth, if you'd like
Yeah.
to, with the Collins Center and link
Yeah.
to them and say, this is where it happens. The issue is there's a whole lot of messy committee business mixed in, but at the
Yeah.
beginning of these meetings, right? But so be it. It's still it's still always publicly available. We're just pointing to it. and
Yeah.
saying,
Right.
You might not want to miss this because there's good stuff in there mixed in.
And that's where I'm at. Like, we want you to be aware that this service is being provided, not just to this review committee, but to the public.
Yeah,
If you want to
Mhm.
better understand this chart, that's a part of our work.
yeah.
Yep.
No, I really like that idea. I'll make space for that in our website.
Yeah.
Good.
I'm not sure if everybody in the committee was clear about what I meant. It was the end of the meeting.
Yeah. No, that's why I wanted to make an agenda item, because it's really worth thinking about. The other piece, the other flip side of what I understood or got interested in thinking about what you said is that it got me thinking about doing a public outreach session. We're not experts, and we're not trying to represent ourselves as experts, right? But like, it's so valuable to get a kind of guided tour of our governing charter
Yeah.
that is different than just sitting and reading it, and
Yeah.
no one wants to do that anyway. But to have people like Collins kind of take you through it is really interesting, and to think about, well, we organize public sessions.
Mm-hmm.
Could one of our sessions be, I don't want to give up the ones we've already created, but I'm saying, because that's for listening, that's a different thing. But an info session has a different kind of value.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know who would take us up on it, but it was an interesting proposition, to say, like,
But
outside committee business,
but I would say, like, having those sessions with them, that yeah, we certainly could share the whole committee meeting, but I wish there was a version of them taking us through the charter where, and I don't know how they were sort of guided in terms of facilitating, where it's their voice explaining, and perhaps us at the end maybe sharing. Because I think sometimes I don't know. You want to get that sort of, I'm taking you through the charter. If you have questions, yes, but our perspectives, I think it's just tricky.
Yeah. We could
I
even
agree.
ask you. Yeah, I agree. You could even ask one of the, would people appreciate a public session explaining the charter, or link them to the video of the Collins Center
Yeah.
going through it? We
Yeah.
could take those Collins Center presentations, they're from 2 different meetings, and make one video.
Yeah, I also just don't want to be, and not that I'm not too afraid of this or wary of this, but in processes like these, I don't want to be in a position where folks think like these committee members kept talking about X and it showed up in this report.
Yeah.
So it's just, you got to be cautious about that.
Yeah.
So these 3 committee members kept talking about this one part of the charter.
Yeah.
Why is that sort of moving forward?
Right.
So it's why in that meeting I was trying to weave in, here's what people have shared.
Right.
Right.
Good.
Yeah.
If you look at our charge, it's like analyzing the feedback to make some. It's not like our analysis of. And
I feel very focused on that.
I'm not sure we're all on the same page with that.
Well, the 3 of us are, I think.
So
I am. I agree with you.
I feel very focused on that. I feel there's always been a little bit of a tension about that in our work.
Yeah.
And that's okay. People read it differently. I feel very focused on the public outreach part. That's why we're here. But I think as an action item to this bit of conversation, we're agreed that we're going to post links to what the town posts for the Charter Review Committee, those sessions that are our hired consultant taking us through the charter.
Right.
Yeah, and beyond a link, just letting the public know in different ways, like Collins Center reviewing X. I think we have those that plan in play in terms of when they might review parts of the charter.
Yeah.
Yep. Good.
All right. Great.
Do we have any more agenda items?
I don't think we do. We have
I'm
approval of minutes, which we don't have.
We don't have. Sorry.
Any topics not anticipated?
Yeah.
I'm getting hungry, that's why I'm asking. When do you eat dinner? When the meeting's at 6 or 6:30? It's a mystery to me,
Like
but
at 6:07.
yeah, I didn't have it yet, so
Oh.
I'm getting
Um,
ready to go eat dinner.
This is great progress, though. I'm excited about next week.
Yeah,
I'm
me too. I'm
excited
sorry I
too.
can't be
Excited
there,
too.
but I'll be very eager to hear how it goes.
Thank you
I'll
both
email
for
you.
all the help and good thinking and good
Yeah, thank you
work.
for all your leadership and being in touch with all this stuff you're doing. Everybody, good team.
Yeah. I'll report out whatever I hear tomorrow.
Okay, great. Thank you both.
Thanks,
All right.
everyone.
Have a
Good
good
night.
night.
See you sometime soon.
Yeah.
Good night.